Hey everyone, this is Jim Soloman, and welcome to another edition of the Soli Lama Show. We've got a really great show today. Our guest is Paul Fairbairn, otherwise known as Pablo Melons of the group Toxic Melons, and he's going to be talking to us about his latest release, Bust Therapy, which is a really good power pop album. And he was able to pull in a ton of great talent to help him out with this record. Everybody from Linus Of Hollywood, Eric Dover, Taylor Locke, and a ton of other folks that are really well known in the power pop world. And the other thing that we're going to be talking about is if you're a musician or you're in a band and you've ever wanted to work with your favorite artist, well, Paul's going to be sharing his secrets and his experience with us about how he landed some of these really big names that I mentioned earlier, like Linus Of Hollywood and Eric Dover and Chris Price and Taylor Locke and so on. Now, I will say one thing. I mean, he had great songs to work with as well. So, I mean, that's one of the pieces of the puzzle. But Paul really does shed some light on some of his tricks and some of the things that he's learned through experience to get some of these artists to be on his album and some of the trials and tribulations and things like that. So it's a really interesting interview. And one last thing, I just want to mention that Paul is on the verge of announcing his next really big artist. I think this is probably the biggest artist that he's had on his albums to date. So stay tuned for that. Keep checking Paul's Facebook because he's going to make that announcement. And I believe it's going to be a video announcement as well. So stay tuned for that. And let's get on with the show. Awesome. Well, Paul, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on.
We did a little review on your album, and I quite enjoyed it. It was pretty eclectic as far as within the power pop arena. You had a little bit of edgier stuff, and then you had some real kind of sweet and soft Beach Boy stuff and things like that. So when you put an album together like this, how do you choose which songs to put on the album?
It's not really a choice, really. When I start writing a song, I just see it through until the bitter end, sort of thing. So the initial idea will usually take about 10 or 12 sort of different stages, sort of thing. But I never really scrap a song. I'm not really prolific enough, which is why there's only 9 tracks on the album. But after those 9 tracks, because it was sort of a case of like sort of saying what I wanted to say with the lyrics as well. So after the 9 tracks, I really had nothing else to say. So it's kind of, I need sort of lyrical ideas as well as sort of melodic ideas to really put something together.
So how did Toxic Melons actually start?
It started with me. Toxic Melons was originally a band, and we went through various drummers like Spinal Tap. A drummer spontaneously combusted once on stage, and and I was writing all the songs, and I hadn't really fully delved into the power pop world at that point. I knew of Jellyfish. Yeah, Jellyfish changed my life, as I tell everyone. But the band that I had, even though we sounded tight and everything, they didn't really share the same tastes. And it was one of those things where I tried, like, one person can't make a democracy. I think, everyone has to make a democracy. Otherwise, it's, people asking you how you want your democracy run. It doesn't work like that. So they sort of all had their own side projects and everything. And those became more important to them, and so Toxic Melons as a band kind of ended, and I decided to sort of keep the name and really indulge myself with my tastes, not realizing how hard that would be, sort of bringing in all the instrumentation and everything. But that's sort of how it went from there. I used drum recordings that we were going to have for the first album, which I didn't mind, but they weren't really to my taste. Like, I thought they were a bit too fast, but I had to use what I had, pretty much. So I used those to sort of make the first album, and then went from there, really. I mean, it was the amount of different musicians that sort of gave the album its flavour, and I really liked working with new people. And I never really planned on playing any of the stuff live, so I felt that I could really go off on a tangent, sort of thing.
What kind of music did you guys do before you were into the power pop?
As a band, it really was just my songs. I wasn't like an overlord or anything like that. The guitarist had some songs, and the drummer had a song. Um, it was just my songs, but I suppose because we didn't share the same tastes, it sounded a bit bland, I would say, sort of verging on indie sort of thing. But indie was big at the time, so there's a chance that if we'd have stuck at it, something maybe could have happened. Because it wasn't like we were playing in front of nobody. Um, I would say that the stuff was probably a bit more melodic than sort of the average indie stuff at the time. But yeah, that's basically what we were doing, just playing my songs, really.
And so what led you to the power pop, the Jellyfish? Who introduced you to all that?
Um, it's really weird. So for years, because I always loved music, but Queen are my favorite band. Um, and then my boss, Steve, who was a big Jellyfish fan from back in the day, he had the dreadlocks like Roger Manning, and used to dress up in baggy clothes and everything like that. He had bought The Land of Pure Imagination, and he had bought the LEO album
Mm-hmm.
as well. He brought them into work, and he was sort of telling me about them, that he had bought the LEO album just for the two lines that Andy Stone
Right.
sung, the first track sort of thing. And I didn't really understand. I was like, really? You spent like £20 on that? Um, so he put on Roger's album, and I was digging it because I'm a big sucker for melody and stuff like that. So being able to find a new artist, to me, that sort of wrote complex melodies, sort of a la Queen, Beach Boys, ELO, and everything like that, was a great thing. And it was Wish It Would Rain, the third track on the album. That was the track that really hooked me in. And when it got to the bridge, there's just these little sort of harmonic bits in the song. And, like, when it happened the first time, like the walls came sort of crumbling down, sort of thing. And it was one of those moments that I'll never forget. And I remember playing the song about 20 times in a row, which was really weird because I worked in a small store at the time, and there were customers in the shop as well, so they had to listen to the same song 20 times in a row. So it just kind of went from there, but that was the defining moment.
And so your earliest memories of music, so that was Queen and things like that really got you to kind of.
It really was, because I'm 28, and I think I was 5 when Freddie Mercury died, but I just remember it being on the news, and there was lots of clips of him playing Bohemian Rhapsody, and I remember being scared of the music video because it's really, creepy to a 5-year-old, just big hair and big teeth and makeup and that kind of thing. So yeah, that really was sort of my first memory, and I picked up the guitar and learned a lot of the chart hits, sort of the 90s kind of thing, like lots of Oasis and all that kind of thing. Never really getting into it then. It was sort of the late 90s when I really discovered David Bowie and Queen and all that kind of stuff. And Divine Comedy as well. Big Divine Comedy fan, yeah.
And so when you sit down to write any song, I guess, what instrument are you most comfortable on? Because you play all the keys on this album, right?
I do. I program the keys. I'm not really much of a keyboard player, but it was from discovering the power pop stuff that uses all these different sounds, which is why I wanted to start writing with keyboards and definitely arranging with keyboards. I usually I wrote a lot of the early stuff with the guitar, and I'm sort of a bit limited as a guitar player, and it's not like you can really sort of make nice chords just by randomly placing fingers on a guitar all the time, sort of thing. But if you sort of mash some keys on a keyboard, you might hear a nice chord in there somewhere, and then you can sort of go from there. So I've got a wider palette when writing with the keyboard because I can hear the next chord as well. I don't know what it is half the time. Which is great when I have to explain it to a keyboard player that I bring in to play the gigs live and stuff like that. But so keyboard at the moment, yeah.
So on the keyboard, are you like the Sonny Bono and picking notes out to write the song? Or
I suppose I am. Yeah. Never had that comparison before, but yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
And when you're writing all this stuff for Toxic Melons, do you more or less, no pun intended, write a song for a particular artist? Like, so Linus is on Change the World. So you're writing Change the World. Are you writing that for Linus and just hoping that you can get Linus to play on it, or?
As time went, I mean, the first album had just 3 singers on it, and I knew those people. But because it's so easy to immerse yourself in the power pop world online, because everyone's so accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from Andy Sturmer, who
Yeah.
If you can get in touch with him, then I think you've done well.
Have you?
No, and I've spoken to people who have spoken to him, but I'm not gonna hold out hope for him singing on the next album or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, so with something like Change the World, I could kind of hear Linus sing it, because he has a lot of 6/8 kind of stuff, and he's obviously massively influenced by Jellyfish, and it's a kind of Jellyfish sounding track, I would say. So usually I can hear the singer in mind, and it's not always someone who's well known. It could be a friend, because I've got lots of talented friends that deserve to be heard by more people, and if I can, in my own small way, get their voice heard and promote them a little bit, then it just benefits everyone, really.
Right. What's the process from there? You have a song, and do you just start blasting out emails to different artists? And if they say they can do it, great. But if they don't, do you still stick with that song, or do you try to write a new song? Like if you had somebody in mind for it?
No. Like I say, I'm really not that prolific. With the last album, I had people in mind who were going to be a part of the album but pulled out for some reasons. Like Tim Smith was going to be on the album.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he was really up for it as well, but then some project came in that was probably better paying than what he was going to play bass on Change the World.
Okay.
Because I thought that would be a good sort of song for him to play, and he really liked the song as well. Willie Wisely was going to be on the track, but he had to pull out.
Okay.
It's just things like that. But and sort of friends have pulled out as well for certain reasons as well. But I will always find a way to make something work.
I kind of want to help everybody understand, because this is such a very cool project, and it seems like it's doable for a lot of people in your position. So when you've got the songs all written, are they pretty much polished demos, kind of like the like belly button demos and things like that? You've heard those. I mean, are they pretty much done? Do they have to be done to give to an artist, or is it kind of skeleton and then you work with the artist to arrange it?
Varies from track to track. I usually try and have as complete of a demo as possible. So it's lots of synth instruments, so programs, and I will lay a guide vocal down, and I'm not really much of a singer, so when I send it to Chris Price or someone like that, I'm like, okay, before you listen to it, I can't sing.
Right.
Just keep that in mind. And that's what's put some people off, because there's one song on the album that I sung really badly, because it's really Not in Love, that's the track.
That's a great song.
Oh, thanks very much. But it's not easy to sing. I've got my range, sort of thing, and the guy who was going to sing it, he didn't really get the song because I made such a bad job of it performance-wise. So, but then the guy who took over did a really good job. But usually I try to have as much of a finished demo as possible.
So like Change the World had a pretty, it was fairly complex as far as the vocals with the backings and, over Linus's lead. So the la la las and things like that.
That was all Linus's idea.
So he helped you build.
Yeah, I like to give artists free reign because they've got to enjoy it. Two, probably not getting paid too much, so I'm willing to let them have creative freedom. So like as long as they stick to the lead melody, and that's part of the reason why I try to come up with as much of a backing track as possible, so they know where to put some vocals in. Because I could have a violin come in at one point, and it would not make any sense to put some backing vocals at that point as well.
So when you're working with the artist, are you just basically sending files back and forth, and if it's not quite what you want, you send the files back, or do you have a Skype session while they're recording so that you can kind of be there and kind of nudge them into the direction that you'd like?
Most of the time I've been quite lucky that what they send back has been beyond my expectations. Mm-hmm. I've never not been happy, but at the same time, if I'm working with Linus and I've paid him a certain amount of money, I kind of have to hope that what I get back is going to be fine, because I don't think he's really going to have the time to do it again, sort of thing. But it's kind of night and day. Like him compared to some people that I've worked with, he knows what he's doing. Chris Price, the track that I sent him for "Take Me Back" was just going to be bongos, electric piano, and he was going to do acoustic and just one lead vocal. That was it. And he sent a message saying, "Oh, I want to change the arrangement a little bit. I hope you don't mind." And I was like, "Chris, you can do whatever you want. You're far more talented than I am." And then he sent back this Beach Boys Wall of Sound masterpiece, and I was just like, "That is crazy." And I felt really bad that because I didn't feel like I paid him enough. And he was like, "It's fine. I did it in 4 hours." And I was like, well, "That's insane that you did that."
That doesn't sound like it was done in 4 hours.
No. And I don't know if I should say that, because it's kind of giving away secrets and stuff. But
we'll edit that out, right?
No, it's fine. I'm hopefully good at sort of convincing people to help me out, sort of thing. Obviously people need to make money, so obviously if they want paid, and if I think it's worth it, then I will obviously pay them to get the best product possible, because I can't do it myself, so I've got to rely on people. But I'm lucky to have friends who will help me for free, because they know I'm making no money from this. It wasn't like when I did the Kickstarter, I just went on a holiday with the money, which I would like to have done, but yeah.
Now, was he playing guitar on that track as well? Because there's no guitar, I think, listed on that track.
Yes, he did. Did I not credit him? Well,
you credited him for the vocals in the Mellotron?
Oh, okay. He played everything on that track.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mind not playing on a track. There's a couple of tracks on there that I don't end up being on, and it's just one of those things that I always said from the start that Toxic Melons would have no boundaries of what it is, mm-hmm. which is why there's an electronica track, there's an ambient instrumental track. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing this just because I need a disco track and I haven't had one before. It's like, if I feel that something's going to work, then I'll do it.
Right.
And I don't have to sort of, apologize or try to justify it, sort of thing. It just is what it is, which is sort of, it's always an interesting thing to send out to reviewers, because you really don't know what you're going to get back. Because I think with kind of labeling myself as power pop, I think everyone, or a lot of people, would expect every track to kind of sound like Not in Love, and sort of have these happy lyrics and that kind of thing. But I've got short attention span as well, so I don't think I could write two things the same.
Right.
Give it until the 5th album, and then everything will start sounding the same. But
and then speaking of the instruments, do you try to use real instrument, like analog things like that, or is it all digital and plugins and things like that?
With the first album, it's all natural instruments, and that drove me insane. Because I didn't know enough musicians, so I would go to the local university and I would see someone with a clarinet, and I'd be like, "You come here." yeah, it was that kind of ridiculousness. Um, and on the EP, that kind of happened as well. But with this album, I was fine with there being some programmed drums on there, and you know it it's just to me it would be nice to be able to have everything be real instruments, but I'm not surrounded by that kind of atmosphere. If I lived out in LA and I knew all these people,
Right.
then it might be easier. But it's just one of those things. And if it turns out better because of having some program stuff on there, then that's fine by me. Because the guy that produced the album is called Vim, and he's just a mad genius. He lives in The Hague and he makes music like Frank Zappa. He's just like ridiculous. So he's got really good samples of horns and anything like that. So yeah.
And what did you use for the journey? What was?
Yeah, it was just some synths on Logic.
Okay.
Yeah, because I read the review, and I know you said it sounded like something on one of your apps or something. And I
Well,
was like,
it's the Moog app, the Animoog.
oh, okay. See, I don't have. I'm probably giving away too much here, but I wanted just a really introverted instrumental track. So it's just turned off the lights, and what you heard is the first take. I was just like, it's just one of those things. But we added stuff to it like room noise to make it sound like a analog Moog. Because obviously, I would love to have that stuff, but
Right.
that is what it is, and it got a lot of mixed reviews, that track, because it's really unexpected, and you've got to have your headphones on to sort of enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Yep. And what you were saying about people expecting the power pop just to be straight power pop. I just kind of feel like also with this album, like you saw in the review, you can kind of listen to it two different ways. You can kind of take it and see how all the tracks fit together, or it can kind of be a compilation album of like kind of a greatest hits power pop, because you've got all different singers on it, all different types of pop, and it works that way too. So it kind of gives the listener, a couple of different ways to listen to it each time.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree with that. It doesn't mean that the next album will be like that.
Right.
The next album I might just have one singer or anything, but it's kind of, when I explain it to people, I have to have sort of an elevator pitch. Just because it's kind of hard to explain, and I'm still working on that, to be honest. But yeah, it does have a bit of a concept behind it, that album. But like you say, you don't have to listen to it as an album.
Yeah,
I don't think.
but that's kind of like, it just kind of adds to the depth. You don't just have to listen to it the same way over and over and over, which I can appreciate. As somebody who likes to listen to music with headphones and listen, I'll listen to when Catnip Dynamite came out, or any of these albums. I'll listen to them 30, 40, 50 times before I change the CD, because I can hear different things in each song, like by listening to it over and over and over and over. And I love discovering little bits like that in music. So
Yeah. I'm still not sick of that album yet. I don't think I will. Catnip Dynamite's tremendous. I can't wait for the new album as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked for that too. On Catnip, I know we're getting off on a tangent, but
Oh no,
the Survival Machine to me was just such an amazing song. I thought it could be put on Wakeman's No Earthly Connection album.
Absolutely.
I mean, just with the harpsichord and the way you could literally put Ashley Holt in there and have him sing that song, and it would fit in with that whole, it's such a haunting song, but it's so beautiful at the same time. Like how he accomplished that is just mind-boggling.
The one thing that I got from, when I say Jellyfish, it's kind of a blanket term. I mean, like Roger's solo stuff, Jason's solo stuff, Midgets, Imperial Drag, all of that kind of stuff. But I just call it Jellyfish because it kind
Right.
of, the one main thing that I got from that is, you don't have to be ashamed of your influences. You can really wear them on your sleeve and just go for it as long as it makes you happy, sort of thing. Those Roger albums are the most self-indulgent albums I've probably ever heard, and they're not going to break the mainstream, even though they should. But he's a lot of people really dig that kind of stuff, and I don't think it goes too far in any particular direction because I think that might put people off. I think the fact that it's eclectic really helps.
Right.
Like the Survival Machine, I don't have that on my iPod, so I don't listen to it quite as much because it's like a 7-minute thing, and if that comes on when you're on the bus, it's kind of the track that you might skip. But I just had the CD on not long ago, and it sounded fresh because I hadn't heard it for a long time. That and Haunted Henry as well. I hadn't heard that for a good long while.
I appreciate Haunted Henry because I love that the drums are not just the typical, hi-hat, snare drum. He's got a.
Yeah.
It's the rhythm of it and the way that the drums are played just makes it such an interesting song. And I can appreciate when an artist doesn't use that standard rhythm, I guess you would call it, where they're using. It's kind of like was it Magic Pipe on Umajets? And Roger actually played the drums on that as well, and it's not your typical drum pattern, and it keeps it interesting.
Oh, there's a lot of that on that Umajets album, like Mother. It's programmed, but it's just such an odd sort of beat, and Eric plays mandolin on it, and it's just the weirdest mandolin part you've ever heard. When I met Eric, I talked to him about that album for probably a couple of hours because. Just as much as the Jellyfish stuff, that album melodically is just another world to me. Because a lot of it's just 2-part harmonies, but it's still so complex. Like the Middle of Monday, where the lead vocal somehow becomes the backing vocal halfway through the song, and then it's a really hard song to sing because you find yourself switching between the two vocals, and I would love to hear those two vocals sort of split left right sort of thing, and I've asked Tim and Rob if they have them, and I don't think they're willing to share.
Have you asked Rob to be on your album?
I've sent Rob the latest album, and he liked it. I've never really thought to ask him, to be honest. I would. There's no one's out of bounds, and I'm a really shameless person, so I will just ask anything. I would ask him. I don't, just depends if he would. I don't know what he really does at the moment, so I could unwittingly get Rob and Tim to play the same track.
That would be pretty cool. I think that was American Pipe, not Magic Pipe.
American Pipe. It was American Pipe. That is my favorite organ solo as well. The clav, I love it. Absolutely amazing. I want that on a song at some point.
And so that's kind of a good lead in for the next question, talking about Eric Dover. I thought it was kind of interesting that you used him for programming instead of his guitar work and his vocal work.
Well, Eric does play on the EP that I released.
Oh, you did?
International Accident. Yeah, he did. He put a shitload of guitar on a track because I was going to do rhythm for the track, and I asked if he could do lead, and he heard my rhythm guitar, and what I was playing it through, it just sounded really weak, and he was like, "This needs balls, so I'll do it." And I was like, "Eric, you can do what you want." That's absolutely fine by me. So yeah, we kind of built a friendship from there, really. But he has also sent me some of his sort of electronic things that he's done that hasn't been released.
Kind of like the Malibu of Roger. He's got some electronic stuff.
Kind of.
I mean, not in that sense, but it's like your alter ego. Like.
Yes, I mean, because he ventures into electronica a little bit on Stranger Than Fiction. But this stuff, I don't know what he wants to do with it, but some of it's really vulgar, but like really funny as well.
Right.
You can tell that he was having so much fun doing it.
So did he get a kick out of? Excuse me. Did he get a kick out of Disco Balls then?
I think he got a kick out of that. Yeah, Disco Ball. It's kind of a character, Disco Balls. He's just struts where he wants, gets all the ladies. It was kind of influenced a little bit by Frank Zappa, um, Dancing Fool
Mm-hmm.
by Zappa, and a couple of other things as well. Disco Balls was going to be full on 70s disco with the strings and the piano, but I just thought there was a bit too much piano on the album, so I thought I would sort of make it a bit more electronic. And Eric was really happy to help. He did want to be credited as Lord Snot. Uh, yeah, not Eric Dover. And I probably should have done that. I don't think he minds really, but Eric Dover gets more interest than Lord Snot.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I kind of want to talk about the whole model of what you do for other folks out there. Like I said, this is such a cool concept, and it makes playing with these guys, playing with your heroes, it kind of brings it in reach for you. But
Yeah.
I'm sure most people wouldn't know where to start, how to do that. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of the business side of things, not obviously getting into specifics and things like that, but if I wanted to do this, when you contact an artist, do you say, hey, I've got X that I can pay you? Or do you say, what's your fee? Is it like upfront fees? Do some artists take it on the backside as far as after album sales? Is it different? Is it different for each artist? Like can you talk a little bit about that process for us?
It's definitely different. Like I say, I work with a lot of friends, and they know the situation I'm in. I'm not selling really any albums, to be honest. The Kickstarter did well, and it's always the same deal. If I sell 1 million albums, you'll get a cut.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually buy them lunch, and I can usually get free studio time at university or college or something like that. Or a lot of them have home studios as well. And luckily, they like the music that I make, which really helps. With anyone who is a name, I don't really know how much I can get into it.
We don't want to know like prices and things like that, but like how does that, like, I know, for example, like if you go onto Roger's website and on his Facebook page, he said, you know what, I've had a lot of fun working with people over the years. You can send me an MP3 and tell me how much, whatever you can scrape together, and I'll either say no thank you politely or yes. I mean, it's listed on his website. Or on his Facebook. I think
is that still on his website? I remember getting an email at one point. That's why he was going to be on the first album.
Yeah,
and he had to pull out because it was a schedule thing. He said, "Oh, look, I need an extra month," and because I had that many people help me with the album, I couldn't wait an extra month. And to be honest, now at this point, I'm glad that he isn't on it, because the production, although I really love the album and I was really happy with it at the time, you learn. It sounds a bit. I suppose it's not lo-fi enough to be considered lo-fi, but it's not polished enough to be considered really polished, sort of thing. With people like that, with Roger and with Linus, they usually want half of it up front,
mm-hmm.
and then they want half after you've finished. And like I say, they're really easy to get in contact with, and they're not selling 1 million albums, sort of thing. So session work is probably their bread and butter. I'm sure more people know Blue through his session stuff,
right,
than through, what I mean. Blue's a little bit harder to contact, but now he's doing stuff with Disney and stuff like that. So
right.
I did try and get Jason Faulkner on the last album, and he said he can work within budgets, but he told me how much he would charge. But he's worked with Paul McCartney, so I'm not. So it was one of those things where I was just like, I can't really afford what you said, and he was like, well, that's why I said work within budgets, and it was just one of those things that didn't happen. So
right.
it's not a massive deal. I got to meet him in London. And, we had a bit of a chat and everything, but
So every artist is
yeah,
basically going to be different in, what they can do with you
yeah. I
and
don't
work.
know if I answered your question that well.
No, I mean, basically what you're saying is that, every artist, depending on how popular they are, is going to be able to either work with your budget or not. And it's as simple as that. And
Yeah,
they're all
well,
keen to at least having you ask and get in touch with them. It sounds like.
yeah, totally. I mean, the guy who is playing on the next release, who I told you about, which is still a secret at the
Right,
moment.
right, right.
Um, he listened to it. He really liked the track, and he said, "I feel comfortable charging this amount."
Right.
And it's just a mutual understanding, really. You know, he's not. They're not exactly struggling musicians, but I
Right.
think they understand the unsigned musician side of it probably more than some people. And I think they understand as well that it's a chance for someone to work with, a fan, or for someone to work with their hero sort of thing. So I don't think they take that lightly,
Hmm.
because I really show my appreciation in that way.
And have you reached out to anybody to try to write with them, like a Linus or Eric or some of the other folks?
Um, I have with a couple of people, but I don't think to be sort of um, diplomatic about it. I think they've got a lot of things going on, so I never really expect them to say, "Oh, let's write a song together."
Right, right,
So, you know, um, I think that hopefully I'm somewhere in the back of their mind,
right.
sort of thing. And if someone pays them a compliment on a track that they played on for me, then it sort of keeps me fresh
Hmm.
in their mind, sort of thing. I'm going down to London next week to collaborate with a guy called Daniel Ash. And he sang "Just One Beer"
Hmm.
of the album, and like he's in a great band called the Lost Boys. I'll send you a link. I think you'll really dig them. But he's supported Paul Weller and stuff like that. So, and he's recorded in his studio. So I'm hoping that what we do might end up in Paul Weller's hands. I'm not saying that I'm going to end up working with Paul Weller, but um, it just if you make enough connections, it just kind of opens up some doors. Hopefully, yeah.
And then you've got to have the courage to ask.
Oh yeah, but like I say, when you've got no money, you can just be as shameless as you want. Really, that's usually the first thing I say. It's like, right, I'm broke, but I've got this song, and if you can help me, great. And I like to think that I've got the respect of a lot of fellow songwriters who are on my level, which is like really nice because I really respect them as well. And that kind of means just as much as when someone actually buys the album.
I think you used Pledge Music for your first album, or one of the albums or the EPs to release, and then you used Kickstarter. I think for the Toxic Melons one, correct? What's the difference?
You've done research.
What's that?
You've done some research. You've done some research.
Yeah, of course. For an interview, you got to do research, right? And that was a waste of your time and mine.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, for the folks again looking to be in your position, what's the difference between Kickstarter and Pledge Music, and which one worked out better for you and why?
I don't really know the differences too much. I think Pledge Music is specific for music,
Hmm.
where Kickstarter is for any project.
And do they help you distribute Pledge Music rather than Kickstarter or anything like that? It's just
Unless they take a personal interest in what you're doing. Um, you know, little musician in the UK making an album. I was one of probably thousands of people,
right.
and that first album, it didn't reach its target, which was fine. But I decided to go to Kickstarter for the second album. Not a lot of people would do another Kickstarter after failing one.
Right. So let's say that you did have the perfect crowdfunding campaign and you raised, 10,000, 15,000 or whatever it took. Who would be the person, the person that you would go to in your, to have a dream producer, I guess you could say, for your next album?
To produce the entire album, either Roger Manning or Brian May. That would be fine by me. Yeah, with the Kickstarter thing, it was after Blue had did the Kickstarter for 4, which is an amazing album. Love that album. But he raised like 40 grand, and I didn't really know of Kickstarter at that time. And I think Sextus did theirs, or Eric Dover did his maybe even before 4. I'm not too sure.
I can't remember when it
I
was.
wasn't aware of it, though.
It was so long ago when he started Drama Pants Records, I think it was, and I got the email, and then I bought the T-shirt because I actually had bought Sextus from Weed Share from Steve. I think what was his name? Turnalid.
Oh, did you buy the original mix of Stranger Than Fiction?
I don't actually have the second mix.
Really, the actual album?
I've just got the. I
think you dig it.
But it's still the album's amazing nonetheless. I mean,
And Steve Turnage.
Yeah.
Steve produced my EP.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I must have found him through Eric, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like they had released, I think they released the Uma Jets, and then Roger's album, and then Eric's album, and then it kind of slowly died off, and I didn't pay much attention to it after that. But I had bought all those albums first, and then when Roger re-released his, I bought it, and then when he released it again, I bought it.
Yeah, I'm really bad for that. I don't know if you saw the Jellyfish collection. I think you might have.
These things right here.
Oh, see, I've ordered them, but they haven't come yet. It's an audio thing, isn't it? So you're holding up the reissues.
Yeah.
Of the Jellyfish. As a sort of, I've got a little bit of OCD, so with Jellyfish, I sort of decided if I'm gonna start collecting them, I might as well go fully into it. And I had a student loan at the time as well, so I was able to spend far too much on things. What would usually happen is Bye 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 was released as a Dutch CD single.
Mm-hmm.
I had a crazy bidding war with someone, and I spent far too much on it. And then the next week, that single came up as a buy it now for like $10, and I was just like, oh god. So that kind of thing usually happens. But, I'm helping out. I don't know how much I can say, but I'm helping out with a project. I can tell you after the interview.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
But I'm helping out with something because of the Jellyfish collection. Because I've got like 10 different versions of New Mistake, and I've got 30 copies of Belly Button, etc. Lots of press release letters and interviews and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, so I am helping out with something, but I can't really say what it is.
All right, I'm actually I'm holding out for the vocals only album, which I hope that somebody would put out. They give us the stack of tracks, but
it's just about the only thing they haven't done yet. Yeah. So I think they put it on the back of the fan club box set that someone wanted to call it "Milking the Fish." I think that's very much what has happened now, because it got to the point when they talked about the reissues, and I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. I was like, "Oh, really? How many?" But they've been remastered as well. And
right.
If it means more people can get the fan club tracks, then obviously that's a great thing.
And I will buy it one more time if they come out with the high res, like 24-bit 192
surround sound 5 to 1. Yeah.
That's my limit. I'm done buying Jellyfish stuff after that. But
I see, that's the thing. The guy Alan Bettino, I think that's his name. He's the guy who animated the Baby's Coming Back video. He was selling original sketches.
Yep, I saw that on eBay.
Did you see all of that? Yeah, and I was just like, I did miss out on a few of them, and I was just, I think I said to him, I was like, you could just release those sketches every week, and because I'm a bit of a completionist, I would have to buy them. So that's kind of where it ends, you know. Um, but yeah, he released he made a CGI version of the Baby's Coming Back design and released it as a print, I think, and I think that was very limited edition, and I didn't buy one, but I also had no money at the time, so
Right.
you know, one of those things.
What's next for Toxic Melons? What's on your radar?
Um, Immediately, I'm gonna make a sandwich. Uh, I'm going down to London next week. There is going to be a Stage It gig from the hotel room in London, so we'll have to be quiet because we usually try and accommodate everyone in LA. So we'll have to play at midnight just to, you know, so that people will be up. And that'll be me and Daniel Ash.
Okay.
He'll be doing some of his tracks, I'll be doing some of mine, and we'll just mesh them together and see what happens, sort of thing. I'm re-recording a few tracks from the first album to bring them up to production of Bus Therapy. The one of those tracks has the guy that we talked about. I said, you know, the big surprise, which we'll announce at some point. Apart from that, I've been asked. Sorry,
I was going to say, are you trying to collect enough to put out an EP, a whole album, or?
It's going to be a 4-track EP. It's going to be the 2 tracks from Melon Jam, the first album. There's a remix of More or Less that is sort of in the works. My friend John wanted to make a remix, and I haven't heard it yet. But I know that he's added a lot of guitar to it because there's no guitar on the first track, so it's not going to be like a dance remix. I don't think it's going to be a different arrangement. And there's going to be a track from the album launch that I did because we recorded it through a multi-channel desk. So it'll be a live version of Getting Old. More of a stripped down performance with me on vocals, sort of singing the melody more how I would have had it compared to what's on the album. So it's just like hopefully best of all worlds. So there'll be 2 studio tracks, a remix, and a live track. And then, apart from that, I've been asked to make some music for a short film that I don't know too much about yet. But the guy who made his last film, he sort of centered around a lot of UK independent festivals, and it got some attention. So you know something might come of that, but. I'm not really thinking too much about that at the moment, and I've got a ton of college work to do as well. I'm a student teacher, so it's just trying to find time for any of this is hard. But you know, I'm not complaining.
Right. And do you? Do you go into spurts where you write a lot and then kind of go take a break?
Yeah. Bus Therapy was written in about 3 or 4 months, which was a very sort of creative sort of spurt. After that, I was just messing around with ideas, and I've found all of these sort of just started ideas, and a lot of those will get worked on. Like I say, I like to work on a track until the bitter end, sort of thing. So I'll chisel something out of them. And it's not because of lack of ideas, but I just need to have something there to get me going, sort of thing. It's getting the initial bit that is the hard thing, you know, because I will just like we've changed the world. That intro, those chords, I was just sort of messing around, just like sort of eyes closed and just playing along to a drum track. And then I found just 2 chords that I could play and that I liked, and that sort of became the intro. And then I played some chords over the top of that, and then it sort of there's like 2 pianos on that track, sort of thing. Yeah, I give really long answers to your very short questions.
No, it makes for a good interview, right?
Okay.
Because otherwise, if you're giving me short answers, we're done in 10 minutes.
That's true.
So, is there anything that you want to add to this?
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm glad that you dig the album. Yeah, it's been out for a while now, but it's still kind of a new album because obviously a lot of people haven't heard it.
I'm actually I have an interview in the can with a pretty big artist, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you after the interview. And
Okay.
I'm just kind of waiting, but it's like a new old album that not a lot of people know about, and so yeah, I know I understand what you mean by it's been out for a while, but
Yeah. Well, but a lot of what the promotion that I do is on the internet, and I'm on the internet probably far too much. But when I'm on, I'm trying to promote it, so it just makes sense to do so because I owe everything to, well, not everything, but a lot to Facebook because I've been able to contact
mhm,
a lot of my heroes. I've built a bit of a following.
right.
You know, um, the Kickstarter thing that was all online, and it happened to do better than I thought it would do. I think it's because a lot of people that like my stuff live in LA and they happen to have a little bit of money.
Hmm.
So I think they're quite generous, and they're of a generation where I think they like merchandise and stuff, that kind of thing. So they're happy to pay a little bit more to get the name on the back and stuff like that. I'm not famous enough to charge for a 10-minute Skype conversation now.
I think that's like Eric had like a guitar lesson with him or a Skype session like 30
I
minutes.
think he did, and I'm sure that would have been worth it. I did Skype with him once on Christmas Day, which was cool. Yeah, I'm really glad that you managed to get that out. But I know there's a vinyl of that album because I ordered one and it never made it to this country. Yeah, so I might actually uh, bother him about that again because apparently it was multicolored swirled
Oh,
vinyl.
really?
Apparently it looks really cool. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time, and hopefully a lot of people listen to this. And again, I think it's absolutely, if you're a power pop fan, it's worth picking up this album. I think for the value, especially it's 5 pounds, which is about what, $7.50 or so US.
I think it is.
It's
For the
for the MP3.
physical, yeah, for the for the for the WAVs, it's
Yeah, the
yeah. The physical thing is £10.
10 pounds, but
There is other merch as well, which I really need to add to the deal. But usually, when someone buys a CD, I usually include them.
oh, okay.
Whatever in there anyway.
But either way, it's a great value. Some people might not see like how Journey fits in there and things like that, but on the whole, I mean, between More or Less, Change the World, Disco Balls, Not in Love, Take Me Back, those are just phenomenal songs, and I think any person who's into power pop would absolutely be happy to have this album.
I really appreciate that. If nothing else, just based on who is on the album as well. I don't think there's anyone else at my level. I'm really low down. I'm kind of known in the power pop world now, which is really cool. But I would hope that some people are just impressed that I was able to get that kind of roster together on an album.
Absolutely. And it's not as slickly produced as Spilt Milk or something like that, and it kind of has this own like do it yourself feel to it, but the song and the song is fantastic. The writing, that's I think the essence of this album is your display of your ability to write great pop music.
I hope that's what shines through. And it's not like they sound like crap. Hopefully,
no, not at all, not at all. But I think people
I totally understand. I think it probably adds to the charm of it. I know I keep saying it, but one, I don't really have the budget to
absolutely
do a Spilt Milk. People. I know a lot of people who can make a very nice, slick sounding album, but at the same time, they're not bringing in musicians from 7 or 8 different countries. And,
exactly.
And those musicians as well. When I give them, I will give Taylor Locke the same track that I give to the bass player, sort of thing, and they don't know what each other are doing as well. So I've never had any clashes yet, which is good. But you can always like sort of cut stuff out and move it around,
right?
If needed. And I don't know if you know as well, but Chadwick Salls from Seed. I don't know if you remember Seed. Yeah, he plays bass on More or Less.
Yep.
as well, and he was really nice and sort of accommodating, and he really likes the track, and he showed me a lot of his new solo stuff as well. So it's just it's just nice to have a bit of a friendship with those people.
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, and we've really enjoyed having you on the show.
I really appreciate. I feel honoured that I followed Jason Faulkner as a guest. It's a bit of a step down, but hopefully just as entertaining of an interview. Hopefully.
Absolutely, I'm sure it will be. I'm sure people will enjoy it. So.
Okay, I really appreciate it. We've just hit an hour as well, so that's good timing. So
all right, stick around for
thank you very much.
for 1 second.